Hi everyone, welcome back to Java 1 for All. In this video we are going to play a little bit with paths and files, and we are going to create some files, create some directories, and for example copy one file to another file. For that, let's create a new class inside the WNIO.test. Let's call it pathtest02. So everything starts with paths. We need to get where we want to create the directory or create the file. So since I'm going to use the root level, I'm going to let me delete this folder here. I'm going to use this folder name. So paths.get and then folder. This is going to return a path, not paths. Now we know where this folder should be created. Since I'm not passing any absolute path, it's going to use the root level of my project. Now we just call files.create directory. As you can see, the create directory is going to ask for a path, which we have here. The same thing as the file, we have to either surround with try catch or add to the method signature. I'm going to add to the method signature just to keep things clean in this training. Now this is going to return a path. So you have a couple options. You can either create a new path, or maybe you can reuse the same reference variable here. It's up to you. Now let me execute this one, Ctrl Shift F10, and you will see that we have the folder, exactly like creating with mkdir from file. But the problem is if we execute again. As you can see, we have exception. So one of the major differences between the old file and the new IO is that most of the time you will get some kind of exception. So if you remember correctly, the file class, it will just ignore, return false, and it was not created, but the create directory throws exception if the file already exists. If you go over the documentation, you will see that it tells you that it's going to throw file already exists exception, or if you are trying to create a directory where the parent does not exist, it's going to throw IO exception. So how can we solve this problem? Basically, we can do a quick check. File dot if the path not exists, I want you to create that folder. Ctrl Shift F10, and we don't get the exception anymore. So you have not exists and you have exists. Okay, so now that we know how to create directory, what if we want to create directories like folder, subfolder, subfolder? How do we do that? We need a path, paths.get, and then I will use the same name. I could start with this path, but let's add here folder, and you will see that even on Windows I can use the / sub folder 2, for example, and this we can have here subfolder path, and we have files.create directories subfolder path. Now just execute and you will see that we have the directories, and if I execute again, we don't have any exception. So the create directories will not throw exception even if the directory is already available. So this one is a safe call. And you can also assign to the same path. So basically here you have a new object and you are just reusing the reference variable. You can also create one folder. Let me just show you. If you want to create only one folder, let me delete this one. Through the create directories, it's also possible. It will create the folder for you. But let's keep this. Ctrl+Shift+F10. And we have all subfolders. Okay, so this is for folders, directories. How do we do that for files? Basically the same principle. You will need a path, and you have to be careful because in that path you also need the file name that you want. For example, let's say that I want to create a file.txt inside subfolder. We know to get a path we need paths.get. And we know where we want. We want inside this directory that, by the way, is already here available for us. So I want this one, and I will use toString because this method is overloaded. If it is a string, we can pass here the file.txt name. And this is going to return a file path. Now the same way we have for create directory, we also have files.create file. File path. And you probably guessed the first time it will work. We have file.txt, but if we execute again, we are going to get an exception. So if file.create directory and files.create file, they behave exactly the same. You also can check if it exists. So if it does not exist, I would like you to create for me. Ctrl+Shift+F10. And as you can see, we don't have the exception again. Now, and how do we copy files? Well, let's say that I want to copy this file.txt. I want to copy and paste inside the same folder, but with a different name. Because inside the files, we have two options. We have files.move, that basically will move, literally cut and paste the file in the directory that you want. And we have copy. So I want to copy. To keep things clear, I will create two reference variables here. I will call the first one source. Who is the source? The source is basically my file, this file path. Basically, this is my source. Now, who is my target? So my target is the same subfolder. So we have the subfolder here, but let's say you don't have access to this object with the folder. You only have access to this object that includes the folders and your file. So paths.get. If you do something like this, for example, subfolder, if you get you can get the source, for example, let's say source.get actually toString, and we want file renamed.txt. But this is not going to work. And why is that? Source and target. Ctrl+Shift+F10. So we get an exception because it's considering the file renamed is inside this file.txt, but it's not. So what we need is the parent where this file.txt is located. For that, you just have to call from the source get parent and toString, because the parent is this path right here. So folder, subfolder, subfolder 2. So basically, I want the source to be file.txt inside folder, subfolder 2, and I want to copy to folder, subfolder 2 with the new name file renamed.txt. Let's see, Ctrl+Shift+F10. And it worked, but if we execute again, it does not work because already exists. But fortunately for us, the files.copy has a standard copy option where we can replace existing. Now, if I execute again, let me add some data here. Ctrl Shift F10. The file.txt does not have any data, so this will be gone. And if I add some data here and I execute again, Shift F10, you will see in file renames exactly the same data. So basically that's how it works. As you can see, the new package, the complexity is a little bit bigger than when working with file, but here you are developing in a defensive way. So they are making sure that you are checking if the file exists before trying to do anything. And that's how it works. High cohesion, it will bring you more code, but in the end, it's more maintainable. So let's continue the next topic in the next video. Still IO. See you in the next video. Bye.